and welcome back to Mixed Media. I'm a little alone right now, as you can see. If you're watching on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitch, you can see me right now, and yeah, I'm a little alone. Ben's having some technical issues. His Windows decided to update upon starting his computer. We've all had that happen to us. Well, I've definitely had that happen to me at very inopportune times. So he's handling that right now, so he'll be here soon, hopefully. Nathan is doing some midterm action, and I do not envy him, so he's off for the day. Hopefully he'll be back next week. So, for now, I'm going to fill some space talking to you one-on-one. By the way, shout out to Post, who's in the chat right now. Sup, Post? And also shout out to two other awesome people, 909 Crime and Rob Sharma, for supporting us for $5 a month at mixedmedia.locals.com. If you didn't know, over there, that's our support page. It's kind of like Patreon, except honestly superior in every way. So I really like using it. One of the cool things is that we have this live whiteboard. Again, if you can see the stream, right to the right, left. I'm not sure what it is for you guys. I think it's the right of the screen. And if you're a supporter, you can doodle, do whatever you want on there. The link is on the locals, locked behind, for supporters only. So stuff like that, mixedmedia.locals.com, and pretty much any link you could possibly want is at mixedmediapodcast.com. Go check it out. I promise you there's cool stuff there and cool stuff coming. So there you go. Well, who are we? Mixed Media is a weekly live-streamed podcast, basically, and we talk about anything basically art-related, whether that's business or philosophy of art sometimes, or news, or reviewing specific items, or I don't know, pretty much anything you could possibly think of, we talk about, and we'll do literally anything. And we tend to have our own areas of expertise. So, for example, my name is Irving Nestor, and I am a filmmaker, so I tend to talk about a lot of film-related topics, media-related topics, and stuff like that. Ben, who is coming in here shortly, will be talking about music, and Nathan tends to talk about gaming. So yeah, most of our content relies on those three things, but we often talk about the melting between those three things, and sometimes we talk about things outside of our main domains. So that's the show. Still waiting on Ben, so let's see here. What should we talk about? I'll give my news for the week, and this, I guess, is the crossover. Maybe I'll replace Nathan's news for the week with something I noticed in gaming, and that's City Skylines today announced the release of City Skylines 2, or announced that there will be a release called City Skylines 2, I should say. And that's crazy. We've mentioned this game multiple times on the show as an example of a game that does basically DLC for like a 10 or 12-year-old game. And basically, they just fund themselves via the DLCs, and they add content that way. And we were speculating that games like that, often can never get an update because the amount of money being made off of DLC will outweigh the cost of a new game, right? If you have a DLC that costs $20 or something like that, but on average, people are buying like 5 DLC, that's $100 plus the base game, let's say another $20, $120. Whereas if they make a new game, let's say it debuts at $60, well, that's just not as much, right? So we've talked about that before on the show, but they finally made a City Skylines 2. I think it's because the community has been asking for it for so long. They know that if they repeat the same business model, they will get the $60, and they will also get the DLC. This is Paradox we're talking about. This is kind of what they do. Post says, if I remember correctly, Crusader Kings does something similar. Is Crusader Kings a Paradox game? Paradox is very well known for this kind of stuff. I think it is. Let's see here. Yes, it is. It is actually a Paradox game. So, so if it has that business model, you could almost certainly guarantee it's a Paradox game. So, yeah. But, people don't really complain terribly much because the DLC, for the most part, tends to be actually adding to the game. But when the core game is so broken that it has to be modded to infinity in order to be playable, then you know, that becomes a problem slowly over time. So yeah, that's my news from the gaming world. So me filling in for Nathan. In the film world, I haven't noticed terribly much. And if you guys know of something that I am missing this week, I mean, there's a John Wick 4 coming out. Yeah, just some release news. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I don't really have much else. Creed 3 came out, so that's a cool thing, but I didn't get a chance to look at the opening numbers or anything like that, so I don't really have much to say. It seems as though it's getting good traction, so that's cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty slow week. Host says, "What about Neil Breen?" Am I dumb? Do I not know who Neil Breen is? Let's see. Neil Breen, is this someone who died? Let's see. Yeah. What about Neil Breen post? What's the news with him? I didn't catch it from a quick search. um. But yeah, I can't think of much else from the. Oh, post says, "Didn't you know he won the best fantasy at some festival?" Oh no, I did not know. I did not know at all. Um, it's bad. Is it so bad it's good? That's my question. Is it that kind of film? Yes. Oh, then I congratulate him. I if you didn't know, my guilty pleasure, not guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty about it at all. I love terrible movies. I love terrible movies. It's truly artistically awful. Yeah, I believe you. I like here. I have to show you guys his Wikipedia page real quick because they do him dirty on Wikipedia. Give me a second. They gave him the worst Wikipedia photo I have ever seen. I'll put the link in the chat first so that you guys can see it. But man, they they really did him dirty with his Wikipedia photo. He's not even he's blinking. It's terrible. Post says Breeners for life. Is this something I should know? Like, let me look at his discography. No, I don't think I've heard of any of these. Dang. I'm missing some of my film world's lore, apparently. I have to check some of these out. But in fact, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of so bad they're good movies lately. Post says, "I think he's a good example of anyone being capable of art in general." Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, I'm still waiting for Ben. So, if it sounds like I'm trying to fill space, that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. Let's see here. What else can we talk about? What other interesting stuff is going on? We'll talk about some stuff that's happening in my personal life, I guess. So, I have a YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the chat to that as well. And most of you know this. I have a YouTube channel. /YouTube. And I have a video coming out this week at some point. I post not frequently because my videos, in my humble opinion, are extremely high quality. I kid. I'm not trying to be arrogant. But I do put a lot of effort into my videos. They take me like 100 hours each, 100 plus hours each to make because I can't really divorce filmmaking from YouTubing as much as I would like. I'm working on it because I need to get faster at posting videos, but it's just hard for me to not want perfection out of what I post. So I post I'm trying to post once a month, and that's kind of been happening like that. So if you want to check that out, you can look up my company, Auriela, Auriela on YouTube. It'll come right up. The next video is going to be about a lot of things, actually. It's a little artsy, so we've got this sort of theme of hope, and the opening is going to be a little bit of a poem. I thought I put a limb out there. Hopefully, you guys don't hate my 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 writing, my poetic writing. I don't think I've ever shared any of that before. It's not anything too crazy. It's something I just wanted to put together as like a little bit of an anthem, if that makes sense, for small towns, which I am currently at Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. So I wanted to put out something that would be a little bit hopeful, and so I've got that going on. And then in the middle of the video, because my videos tend to be around 30 minutes, um, the middle is mostly about the story of one, or a set of people who decide to move to Mount Carmel, this small town, and revitalize a old Victorian home into its former glory. It's absolutely gorgeous what they did with it. So I had a lot of fun taking footage of it. Today I took the final shot of it actually because I was missing something. And I was like, what am I missing? I'm missing an establishing shot of the actual house, which was kind of embarrassing. But the house is like 5 minutes away from me, so I just drove over there, grabbed it. It was a beautiful day today, so there couldn't have been better circumstances for taking that. Thank you, Post. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Um, so there's that, and then it ends with basically some words of encouragement to small towns that are sort of depressed, like this one is, that have a lot of charm to them. I just moved here for you guys. For those who don't know, I used to live in the Bronx for about 2 years, where I started my company, and I couldn't be happier to be in the middle of nowhere, practically, for what people think is the middle of nowhere. I'm actually pretty close to most things. I'm like 2.5 hours away from New York and 2.5 hours away from Philadelphia, an hour away from Harrisburg, and about an hour away from Hershey. So I'm like actually not in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of people from the tri-state area would consider this the middle of nowhere because, well, it's not in the tri-state area, frankly. That's kind of how it is. Post says, city life would suffocate me. Yeah, I'm actually probably naturally a city person. That's the funny part. Is like, I'm probably, my personality is, well, I'm crazy. So I'm probably naturally a city person because I love things going on around me, but it just was becoming, it was becoming unsafe. I couldn't actually flourish as a business. It was crushing, very stressful. There's a lot of reasons, lots and lots of reasons why it wasn't working out too well. So ended up moving out to the middle of nowhere, and I was kind of like, wait, there's actually tons of stuff to do here. Like this, not only is there tons of stuff to do here, but it's beautiful, and the entrepreneurial backdrop is so much easier to work with. And I highly recommend, if you are an artist entrepreneur out there, you're going to try to strike it out on your own, don't go directly to the people magnets. Like, try going out to the middle of nowhere and monopolize. Because that's essentially what I'm doing, and I'm having like the best months of business I've ever had. And I had to restart. So that's kind of crazy. Post says, do you miss having stuff in walking distance? Here's the crazy part, is if you understand, I guess, city planning terms, like the way you think about things in city planning, there's rural, there's suburban, there's urban, right? A lot of times when people think of urban, they think of things that belong in big city centers and stuff like that. So they think of New York, they think of Philadelphia, Chicago, etc. This place right here is actually urban. Like, Mount Carmel is urban by the strict city planning sort of definition because it has blocks. So like, and it's like dense in the sense that we have multifamily units here. It's urban design, right? So it's designed to be walkable, and it's designed to be easily commutable, right? So I can actually walk easily to a grocery store, to pretty much anywhere in town. It's just small. Like, it's just a small, like, version of that. So, yeah, it sounds very nice. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Nashville. You're in Nashville. Nashville, you know what? I almost ended up in Nashville if I wasn't going to be in here. How do you like Nashville? That's a good question. Um, uh, okay, maybe I made a good decision. Well, okay. um, yeah, but you know, the nice thing about the old way of sort of creating these towns, sort of these pockets of density, is that I'm in the middle of rural America. Like I'm in the middle of like just like the mountains and farms and all this natural beauty around me. But where I live is urban, so I get all the advantages of being able to walk basically in any given direction and still be able to function. Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania, Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. It's a great place. I fell in love with it. So I'm probably going to be staying here. I contacted a realtor that's local to here. Actually, she's one of my clients, but she's really cool. So I ended up hitting her up and saying, "Well, do you have time for me as a client for real estate stuff instead of me helping you with marketing stuff?" Um, she said, "Yeah." So I'm looking, and I'm hoping to buy out as much as possible because these tiny towns across the country are very depressed economically. But some of them, and this is one of the regions that's like this, they have no problems. Like they're literally just their only problem is they're lacking population, right? So this town probably can hold 30,000 people, something like that. Um, but it actually only has 5,000 people in it right now. So it's really depressed in that sense. So things are starting to look a little wear and teary. But there's absolutely no crime, right? There's no crime. There's no traffic. Like everything is perfect, except it's a little economically depressed. So when you come into this place, you have a little bit of money, you have a little bit of entrepreneurial gumption, right? You can have the opportunity to kind of have your way with how you grow in a place like this. So I am looking to buy a duplex right now, and I could probably buy this duplex for under $250,000 easily. In the tri-state area, that would cost me $500,000, for a bad duplex. um, so yeah, exactly. It's it's pretty awesome. So what I can do, and this town is kind of at the bottom. So I've talked about economics on the show before. So in places where, so you want to buy low, sell high, right? That's the goal of anything you invest in, right? Buy low in the stock market, sell high, right? Unless you're on Wall Street bets, and you buy high, sell low. Um, uh, and places like this, you have the opportunity to buy low because they're as depressed as they possibly can be. So we're actually in the trough right now of the local region. The reason I say that is because the national housing market is trending down, right? So housing prices are coming down nationally, but here the housing prices are either stagnant or are starting to tick upwards. The reason for that is because we hit as rock bottom already here. So before I even moved here, the house prices were already rock bottom. So there was nowhere to go down from here. But as people started moving in, as people realized that places like this are pretty awesome, there's a lot of people here that are from the New York area as well, who are ecstatic with what they found here, which is pretty much peace, right? And freedom and opportunity. So a lot of those people moving in starts to bring up the house values. Things start to get fixed up. So if you buy now, if I buy my $250,000 duplex right now, conceivably in 5 years, it could be a $500,000 duplex easily. And that's kind of an exciting proposition if you're into investing places like this. So I don't want to stop at a duplex. I want to buy a lot of stuff in town, and it's kind of a doubly good sort of idea from there's like the quote unquote selfish side, right? So taking care of yourself, and then there's like this side of it that's like you're fixing the town, right? So like being able to buy a property, fix it up, and then either flip it or rent it out to someone who couldn't otherwise, afford a mortgage. whatever you're doing, you're cleaning up the town when you do that kind of stuff with this, with a lot of properties that are a little bit dilapidated, a little bit uh, worse for wear. And that brings up the whole local economy. And I love the people here. And so whatever I can do to do that will make me happy, will make them happy. And I'm kind of a devotee of this place at this point. So I've been to a lot of economic meetings and stuff like that. Um, yeah, Post says, I love being in a powerful situation and helping people. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So I don't know if Ben is close or not. Oh, Ben says he's joined from his phone. Has he been here the whole time? Oh no. Let's see. Oh, he's in my Skype room. Oh, it's because he's on his phone, so he appeared as a different account. So let me pull him up because otherwise he would just auto appear on the stream. Let me figure that out real quick. But that was a nice little coffee table chat, I suppose. Let's see here. Yeah, nice to meet you too, Post. By the way, shout out to our Discord community, which has been popping off lately. A lot of cool discussions happening on there about pretty much everything. If you want to head over there, definitely do so. Um, Actually, when I bring Ben on, maybe I'll convince him to do something. He looks excited already. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So he's a little messed up right now, but that will change over time.
Can you at least hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yes. No,
How?
no worries. I've been on for a few minutes, like I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes, 8 minutes.
Oh no, I'm
But
so sorry.
yeah, my laptop, it's like it finally started giving me progress and it's now at 3%. So I'm not gonna wait for this thing. So
Yeah, that makes complete sense. YBDS, which is Nathan, by the way, in the chat, he says, I see we have the usual shenanigans going on. Yeah, this is a feature at this point, not a bug. I think that's what I'll say for now, at least. Let's see if we can get Ben to look a little bit more regular. But in the meantime, while I'm doing that, Ben, you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, well, hello, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer living in Los Angeles.
Sweet. And how was your week and such?
Um, Not bad. It was nice. The rain by midweek kind of ended, and we got some sun again. Although it rained a little bit more yesterday and last night. Um, yeah, getting kind of busy. I'm a bunch of the media composition students here are asking me to play on all their recitals, so I've got a pretty full April of playing in people's composition or media composition recitals coming up.
That's awesome. Sounds fun, at least to me. Can you flip your phone sideways? Is that a comfortable way to do it?
Does that help you?
No, I was expecting it to auto switch to landscape. I was hoping that was gonna happen. Doesn't look like it did. um,
No.
you could flip it back. I'll just deal with this somehow. I don't know why it's being so funny. It's not letting me crop this further. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Anyway, actually Post says in the chat, do you love playing the flute?
Yes, I do. Um, Otherwise, it'd be really hard for me to be spending, as many hours as I am getting my degree in flute performance. Um, yeah. Although I think, as I talked about in a recent show, I'm kind of at this point maybe a little bit more of like a piccolo first player than a flute first player. But yes, that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay. Sweet. Any news in the music world?
I did not notice anything noteworthy enough to mention.
Yes. Okay. I am figuring this out slowly but surely. You're seeing the editing happening live. It wouldn't be mixed media if you weren't seeing this right now. Um, okay, whatever. We're gonna get it close, and then I'll refine it over the night, pretty much, until I stop going crazy. Okay, that'll be
Looks
that'll have,
decent enough.
yes, that'll have to be good enough. um, Sweet. All right. Well, at least you can see that it's raw. Like this, my whole editing setup is probably overcomplicated. I have a lot of freedom to do whatever I want, which also means things break all the time. So that's how this works. um. Okay. Cool. Do you want to do? Let's see. We could do it anyway. We could do arguing with Reddit first, or we can do.
You can go with me first if you like, since it sounds like you've been talking by yourself for a while. So
That's kind of how I'm feeling. Okay, sounds good. All right, so that was our little news/coffee chat segment. If you are listening live right now, we're going to segue to our next segment, but we do cut these down in post, and they get posted as a podcast. You can check out a link to that at mixedmediapodcast.com. Again, shout out to 99 Crime and Rob Sharma for supporting us at $5 a month. Oh no, there's an addendum I need to make.
yeah, Nathan has news, I guess.
Yes, Nathan says, news before I go back to work. Some folks who were part of making the Battlefield franchise are making a game. Closed beta comes out tomorrow. Looks pretty cool, and there's a link. So if you want to go check out the link to whatever that is, go check it out in the chat. Also, good luck to Nathan on his midterms. Okay. Sweet. So now we're going to go on to our Arguing with Reddit segment, where we basically do hot takes from Reddit and beyond. It is Ben's turn this week, so he will be taking over once I switch over. So here... Oh, no. I didn't do that right. It's going to be a great day. I already feel it. All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music, the portion of Mixed Media Podcast dedicated to all things music, with a particular emphasis on classical and on media music.
That's the wrong layout. Sorry. Go ahead.
Still looks a little interesting, but
I'm gonna have to fix that too.
well, anyway, I'm the host. Your host for this segment, Ben. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer living in Los Angeles, and I'll be assisted by one of my usual co-hosts. Let him introduce himself.
Yes, my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And normally we have a third co-host, but he is currently not able to join us tonight. So tonight on Mixed Media Music, we have Arguing with Reddit. And if you are not familiar with our Arguing with Reddit segments, it is a weekly part of our show where one of us responds to hot takes or controversial opinions or questions, things of that nature from the internet, although mostly from Reddit. So I'll be responding to some takes about music, one of which I found for myself, and the others found by my co-hosts and or their representatives, and I did not see them before. So we'll get my live, spontaneous reaction to them.
Yes. So the first one I will do from my representative, producer wife, who found it for me. Let's see if I can pull this up without error, because today has been going very smoothly. So this one's from her, and I have no idea what it is, so let's see what it is. So this one says, classical music is not relaxing or pleasurable to listen to. Well, that's that's a hot take to give to Ben, for sure. Mm-hmm. I have been playing classical music on the piano all my life, and in the last few years I had to stop playing and stop listening, perhaps because I used to suffer from depression and now I just want to be calm and happy. I notice it does nothing to uplift my mood or help me relax. It is suitable as movie soundtracks or concerts where the audience sits through hours of the slog. but it just is not fun or relaxing. I think the rest kind of expounds on that idea. At the end it says, there might be some interesting other points. It says, so overly dramatic, frenetic, emotional, strung out, or melancholy and depressing. I listen to instrumental jazz now, which is more neutral and relaxing.
Wow.
I find that fascinating, but
Oh, boy.
there's the hot take.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you don't find it pleasurable or relaxing, I mean, I can't argue with that, I suppose. But I would start by saying, I mean, classical music is an enormous range of things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
depending on how you want to define it, we're going back to, chant in the, 1000 AD up to, uh, you know, John Cage and George Crumb and Elliot Carter and all sorts of people in between there over the last 1000 or so years. There's a lot of music written in the last 1000 years in the kind of European art tradition, so to speak. So I would be a little skeptical that there's nothing in there that you find pleasurable or enjoyable to listen to. Maybe just haven't found what you like yet. This is totally fine because it's such an enormous body of diverse music. Relaxing. Well, again, I'm sure there are plenty of things in there that are relaxing that you might find relaxing or not, right? I think it's more of a question of listening to the right things because, yes, we kind of, I don't know where exactly this came from, but I think it's kind of a move in like the 80s and 90s. My impression, I could be wrong about the exact years, but my impression is that's kind of parallel to like the Mozart effect. We also kind of have this idea that classical music is supposed to be this like relaxing and soothing thing, which it's good for you to put on while you do your homework, and it'll make you smarter. And like I mean, yeah, some things are soothing, or are meant to be soothing, but a lot of it's not, right? It's music for all sorts of different social and personal purposes.
Yep.
It's not just like a generic all classical music was meant. Yes, everyone, every piece written by Mozart and by Tchaikovsky and by Mahler and by Stravinsky. I don't know, anyone you could think of. They didn't all sit down and say, "I want to write something that's soothing and relaxing." No, a lot of it's supposed to be unsettling. It just, it various. It's so diverse. Music. It's you can't just say it's all soothing, right? Or supposed to be. So I'm sure there are things in there that you probably would find to be relaxing or soothing. In the last 1000 years. So I would urge you, if you want to, just to keep looking. I might push back that this person say, they specifically say instrumental jazz. So what kind of jazz did they say? I can't read.
Yeah, they said instrumental jazz.
Well, that's also a huge range of things. But I would hardly claim that it's more emotionally neutral than classical.
I was gonna
music.
say some of the most painful music I've ever listened to is jazz. Some of the most tense music I've ever listened to is jazz.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of jazz is, it's it's arising from a whole host of things, but it's kind of originally this kind of voice of sort of both musical freedom, but also like this kind of musical voice rising from a lot of factors in like the African American community, and but like with relation to dance and movement in a way that prior music had not really been, kind of taking a lot of early jazz dances are actually kind of adapting things taken from really ancient African dances, which is kind of fascinating. And you know, a lot of it's about life, right? There's a really great quote by Artie Shaw uh, that I will not quote because it is not quite PG rated, but he basically says that jazz is I don't want to say this in a PG way, right? Jazz is about it's about life, and it's like about the best parts of life and expressing them in kind of really an embodied fashion.
Mm.
So I don't think it's supposed to be neutral. Maybe some kinds of cool jazz. If you put on Miles Davis kind of blue, yes. So he's going for a specific kind of effect, right? He wanted the players like you come in at like for the session starting at like 4 or 5 a.m. So but you're tired, so it sounds like you're tired, and it's
Mm.
really slower than like if you were fully awake. It's supposed to have that kind of relaxed sound. I still wouldn't call that neutral. Um, it's just kind of a relaxed version of this embodied music. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what you're thinking of. You're thinking you're putting on Miles Davis kind of blue or like some early jazz samba, something like um, Girl from Ipanema, right? And well, there's a lot more to jazz than just that. But if that's what you enjoy, and that's what gives you some sense of calm, then of course stick with that.
Yeah. Post says, I'm not sure what this person is really saying. It feels like they aren't really sure why they don't like it. And they also said, like they just got so sick of it that it was ruined for them. Most music is heavily tied to emotion and the experiences that we have with the music we listen to. Yeah. I mean, my additional thought on top of that is it kind of reminds me of people who, um, and I'm not saying this to cast aspersions or anything like that, but I think we can learn. People who kind of they don't like to watch films that have any emotions other than those that are either muted in the sense that there's not a lot emotionally at stake, and some people like this really they can't even handle like a Marvel movie. Even it's just too much, or um, or they want something that is so light and palatable that it aids in focus. So it's like not even the purpose of consuming the thing is not even for the thing itself, it's for some other thing, right? It's to throw something on Netflix so that you can focus more while doing work, right? So some people do that with like Hallmark movies and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a kind of I feel like those are different purposes, than a lot of the arts themselves are created to fulfill. So yeah, that would be my addition because I feel like there's a similar thing in movies.
Yeah, I'll include my parting thought that when I um now when I'm like sometimes if I'm like really struggling to fall asleep or something, I want to put something on that'll help me fall asleep. I like the second movement of the Nocturne from Butterdean's Second String Quartet. Actually, I'll put on probably the whole piece, but if I just want something short, just the second movement. Um, not an not an quote emotionally neutral piece at all. Lots of stuff going on in it, but also I can just accept it as something that is really, really beautiful and kind of helps me fall asleep sometimes when I really, really am struggling. So that's what I use personally.
Makes sense. Sweet. All right, and this next one is from you, Ben. So if you want to explain it while I'm pulling it up.
Yeah. Let me. Wait. If I minimize the video, does that like destroy on my phone? Does
I
that
have
destroy?
no idea.
Let me see if I can pull it up. Has it done anything on your?
No,
Do
no,
I
you're
still
still
look?
here. Yeah, you're still here.
Okay, great.
Hmm.
I wanted to quote the person exactly. So the person. This is from our classical music. And the person says, how can I be relatively versed in classical music? I've been listening to pieces here and there for several months now. I'm beginning to like certain composers and their different styles. However, I do not have any musical background and don't know how to further my understanding of classical music. I can't study it in school because I'm already studying something else. Is there some sort of blog that someone can suggest to me so that I can read and understand this vast genre? Okay, I like that because that's a great question. Um, People, not really, not a hot take, but a good question. I see this a lot on the internet. Like, well, how do I get into classical music? How do I understand it, right? And in the general classical music institution furthers this by, they'll offer these like pre-concert talks where they're all about demystifying the music, right? A lot of times they even literally use the word demystify, as though you need a certain amount of knowledge to appreciate fully the thing that is classical music. And it's a hard question because if we look in like earlier eras of music, right? You want to look at like what is the social function of the music and what was the social situation in which it's written. Okay, so like if you are, Haydn, right, writing some of the first symphonies, well, he's mostly writing them for his patron, this really wealthy guy in I guess modern day Germany, right? The Esterházys, and the expectation, right, is that his patron, right, this wealthy guy, I guess, kind of nobility, and whoever his guests are, right, they understand a little bit about musical form, and that they're going to be paying attention to that sort of thing. They want to hear, certain keys resolving to tonalities resolving to different things. Okay, so is that different than say the expectation of what the audience should know for like a Rachmaninoff symphony? Yeah, so there are some aspects of that, right? That like, but we'll never recreate what it's like to be a member of, Haydn's audience. Okay, so at various points, more or less knowledge of music was maybe asked for, called for, given the situation in which it was written. But I'm not really a huge fan of presenting classical music as this kind of thing that one needs to understand. Because I think understanding comes second to responding to it. I think that's how most people are. They don't when they start out, they don't respond intellectually. I mean, you probably can. Most people don't start off by like understanding musical form and then they listen to music and like, oh, I understand form and action now. No, it's normally the normal path is I like this and now I want to understand how it's put together. Yep. So I'd rather the institutions not present music as something which needs to be demystified. Not that having greater understanding won't enrich your experience, but maybe that's a bit of a tangent to what this person is asking. So the person wants the actual wording, right, is be relatively versed. Well, you have to ask yourself first, what are you asking for by being versed in classical music? Do you want to understand the relative history and say, well, I understand what the composer, some facts about this composer's life and how that may have impacted what they're writing, and do I want to know the story of this opera or this piece or whatever, if it has a story? Is that what you mean? Do you want kind of a biographical sort of understanding of what's going on? Do you want a technical vocabulary with which to look at and express what you're listening to, right? You want to understand, well, this is a symphony and It's written, first movement is written in sonata form, and this should resolve this way, but Beethoven does something unexpected and resolves to a different key than I expected it to. Is that what you want to understand? Would you want do you really want all of that, right? I think those are two slightly different things. And you could spend your lifetime trying to acquire knowledge on both of these topics. Just kind of what happens, in the music academy, so to speak. I know in the comments a lot of people suggest Inside the Score, the YouTube channel, which has come up twice, that I selected twice for some little bit of critique on this show.
Yeah.
That will give you somewhat, I guess, give you a combination of both of those things. A little bit of biographical stuff, maybe a little bit more on a technical side of things, in more of a surface-y level. There's also a suggestion in the comments, Aaron Copland's What to Listen For in Music, which is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it, even if that's the furthest you'll ever go in understanding music theory, music structure. It's a great introduction. I remember reading it in, I think, 7th grade. My parents or grandparents got it for me for Christmas, and I thought it would really open my eyes to what was going on in music. So I recommend that if you want a little bit of a basic kind of technical approach. Really, I would just say, as alluded to, or mentioned in, not alluded to, is mentioned in the last kind of response to the first hot take. It's such a vast and therefore intimidating, I think, body of music that really you could diversify, split into multiple categories that might be helpful. So I understand that. My personal approach was just kind of, when I first started listening to classical music, was just to listen to a lot of music, and you can kind of go in two directions, right? Which is you can go but the breadth direction, which is I can listen to, I had a 5 CD set. My parents had a 5 CD set of 100 masterpieces of classical music. And I listened to all of that multiple times through. And it has a lot of the big classics of classical music. So you could get the breadth sort of survey that might help you kind of get a sense of history, along with some reading about what's going on. We can kind of go the depth route, which is what I tend to do as a listener to all genres right now. For most of my musical life has been kind of this way, going back to high school, where I'd be like, well, I want to listen to composer X or, jazz group X or whatever. And great, I want to listen to everything by that composer or that group or whatever. And you could do that. You could really dive into one composer, or maybe you just one kind of historical period. Doesn't have to be quite one composer. So you might think about adopting one of those two approaches, in addition to kind of deciding whether you really want to, by being versed in music, you want to be able to talk about it on a technical level, or you want to be able to talk about it on a kind of a historic or biographical level, or both.
Cool. Yeah, Post says, I actually have a unique insight to the emotion-music relationship, but we can save it for another time. By the way, that's a good plug for our Discord, so Post, you should definitely put your thoughts in the music channel on the Discord, and almost certainly we will discuss it on the next show. And that goes for everyone, by the way. So if you have any hot takes or anything to add to any of our segments, drop in the Discord, and if it ends up being a discussion, almost certainly we'll talk about it on the show. Also, to me, classical music feels more like history to study than music to listen to while I work or whatever. We've come a long way as a species, but I love to study art history because it gives context for what was once the cutting edge of culture. It helps you to understand the greats of the past. So that's his thought.
Yeah, I agree, although I wouldn't relegate classical music to being kind of an artifact, just to being an artifact to kind of admire from a distance. I still think that all art says something about the human condition, and therefore it is worthy of being kept alive in some form. I think it. I still think there's value, for instance, in let's say I put on like a um, the Bach Saint Matthew's or Saint John Passion, right? I think there's a lot of value uh, to that. Not just like, well, I understand what was important to Lutherans in 1730 or something, roughly that those years, living in Leipzig. Um, I think there's the music still says something to me, and probably it can to anyone. Almost 300 years later. Although yes, you can learn something about um, German Lutheranism in the 1730s from a historical point of view as well, by studying it.
Yeah. So we don't have a third hot take, but I forgot in the opening segment to berate you about joining our prospective Minecraft server, Ben. What say you?
Well, as I mentioned in Discord, I don't really understand what Minecraft is. So
I feel like it might be the. So here's a few context points. The music of Minecraft is very critically acclaimed. I don't remember it because it's been literally like maybe it might have been like 8 years since I've played Minecraft, maybe more. So, and even then, I did not play Minecraft, vehemently 8 years ago. Like the last time I really played Minecraft was probably in high school sometime. So, yeah. So there's that. So that's an interesting thing to look forward to. But two, I think potentially we can. I don't know what laptop you have, but it might be able to run Minecraft. It might be able to run Minecraft.
well, if it ever updates, it is currently on, what percent is it on now? It says 17%.
Oh no, it's one of those updates.
Yes. But it's a newer laptop. I think I got this like a year ago. It's an
Oh,
Asus.
there's a chance, guys. There's a chance. Because I can't remember who it was. We were having a long conversation. Was it I think it was Kai actually, who is K Kairos in our Discord. He mentioned that he was playing Minecraft, and I was like, mixed media Minecraft. That just sounds good. And then he was just like, why don't we just create a Minecraft server? And then I was just like, And then the talking started happening, and then I was like, oh, you guys have been planning this whole thing behind my back. So I think this might be happening. And if this is happening, we need to make sure Ben is on there so that we can have Ben's first exposure to gaming on our mixed media Minecraft server.
Well, it's not. I mean, I played a little bit of like Wii and Game Boy Advance back in like the day.
Oh, so you're not familiar with gaming then?
No, but in the intervening years, I lost all ability to do anything with games. The last time I tried to play a video game of any kind, pretty sure you got to witness this. My absolute failing at playing, what was it, Rocket League?
Rocket League, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I was just so disorienting. I just couldn't like figure out how to like what I was looking at.
Yeah. But I'll post this. If you can play the flute, you are capable of playing Minecraft. Yeah, that's true. It is a way easier task, Ben. I promise. Rocket League is hard for me, and I'm pretty good at games in general. Yeah, Rocket League is actually a hard game.
I just remember being very disorienting. I'm trying to think about like what I'm doing, and like suddenly my car is like flipped the other way. I'm like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah. Rocket League's actually a difficult game. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so if you're listening to this in post or you're live right now, if you would enjoy seeing a mixed media Minecraft server with Ben on it, I need you to let me know. Go on Discord at Ben if you have to, and maybe we'll get this streamed because that might be really fun. I don't know. I mean, it'll be really casual, like not anything like this. It would be just like us just fooling around, and maybe even while we're mining or doing some of the more mundane things, maybe we'll bring up some art topics. But it would be really relaxed. Yeah, something like that. If you're interested in that, let us know. Also, speaking of Discord, the reason Post is able to talk to us so real time, so crisply right now, is because he's one of the few people who ever use the Discord streaming, the audio streaming version of this podcast, and I like that because it's cool. So he's able to talk to us so live time because there's no delay on there, unlike on YouTube and Rumble and Twitch, which all have varying amounts of delay. So if you wanna take advantage of that feature, you got to join our Discord, and that was basically a long way to make an ad for our Discord because there's tons of people who watch and don't talk, and I never understand this. They watch and they just don't say a thing during the entire show, and that's cool. I'm glad that you're here, but become vocal. Join our Discord. Anyway, I stuck in an ad somehow in the end of the segment. Okay. Ben, you want to close this out?
Yeah, well, thank you for listening to Mixed Media Music. You already heard Irving's plug to join our Discord. You can also find links to our locals page and where you can support us. Shout out to Rob Sharma and 999 Crime for their support. And also links to every platform in which you can stream things. Let me see how this works on my phone. And if I point, yes, there we go.
Yep.
Link down there, mixedmediapodcast.com. So once again, thanks for listening and watching.
See you on the other side. Here we go. Oh no. That's a first. My clip crashed. Today is a special day, guys. My transition didn't even work this time. Okay, here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you've been watching live, you've always been here, and I thank you for that. I really appreciate it. But if you're listening to this in post, this is our movie segment of our podcast. Last segment was our Arguing with Reddit segment, which we do every week. Go check that out, as Ben discussed various amounts of or various music topics. So definitely go check that out. And while you're at it, go check out all of our podcasts. There's just so much. You couldn't exhaust the breadth of topics. I think we're one of the most random, maybe random art podcasts out there because we kind of just talk about what we want to talk about, and that's pretty cool. So before we start, we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer living in Los Angeles.
Yes, and usually we have a third with us, Nathan, who is not here right now because he's studying for midterms, which sucks. I hate midterms. I'm so glad I'm not in college anymore. But yeah, so this episode of Mixed Media Movies, we'll be talking about a movie I watched yesterday, which is called Howl's Moving Castle. Have you heard of it, Ben?
I've heard of it, although I've not seen it.
Okay. Well, this is a good one that you're here for because the music is phenomenal, and I highly recommend you check it out. Or at least to me, it was phenomenal.
This is one of the Studio Ghibli films, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the music for those is pretty well regarded.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good spoiler alert. I really like this film, so it's going to be a lot of praise as I sort of go through it. Yeah,
it's actually available publicly too. If you know where to look.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think like the complete score for one of these big films was released recently. Not Spirited Away, but one of their big films.
Mm. Yeah, so for context, I've only seen the only other Studio Ghibli film I've seen is Spirited Away. Um, so I'm very uncultured when it comes to Studio Ghibli. I know I'm uncultured in so many areas, and this is one of them. So yeah, this is my second exposure to Studio Ghibli. I will say, and this is probably somewhat blasphemous, I like this film better than I like Spirited Away. Don't kill me. But I think that's a pretty unpopular thing to say. Not to say I didn't like Spirited Away. I really like Spirited Away as well. I just like this one even better. So, no knock on either of these films. But I was able to watch it. Unfortunately, I accidentally purchased an English-only version. I'm sorry. It was actually an accident. I assume that every film these days has the dub for every language, every major language, especially the original language that the film was, done in, Japanese, right? I just expected it to be an option on this film, and it wasn't. So that is blasphemous. I already know it's blasphemous. I did not choose this reality, but that is the reality I ended up with, which is a reality where the main character of this, or sorry, the co-lead, the guy in the picture and of the episode artwork, he is voiced by Christian Bale. So I got to see some interesting random performance by Christian Bale that I didn't expect to have. So I guess that's an interesting that's an interesting angle to come at it with. Is Christian Bale being one of the leads? Yeah, I know. I watched the dub. It's shameful. I'm sorry. But it was a little off-putting at first. And if you don't watch anime very often, I don't speak Japanese at all. I mean, obviously, I know like random words and phrases from animes, but I don't speak Japanese. I have no sense for the language whatsoever. So I don't know how animes sound to Japanese people culturally or linguistically. I have no concept. What I do know is, from my American ears, hearing the translations and the performances in English can really turn on that corny factor, like extremely so. And I think part of the reason that happens is because, it is actually a little, the writing is in anime often very overdramatic. The delivery is often very overstated. That's a cultural style. But maybe it's more acceptable to my ears in Japanese because I can't directly understand it. I have to read it, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if that's what it is. Post says, yeah, Japanese doesn't translate very well to English. Yeah, I presume so. I presume none of these things are, in terms of dubs, I mean, yeah. I assume none of these defects I notice in English, I don't write it off as being like, wow, the writing is so bad, because I wouldn't know. Spent half my life watching Attack on Titan, and all I can say is Eki wa doko desu ka? I don't even know what that means. All I can say is shine, which means die or death. And maybe a few other phrases. But yeah, Attack on Titan. I have been watching that as well. But where's the train station? Is that what that means? That's what Nathan says, at least.
You watched any like Japanese cinema, Irving? Like I've watched a little bit of Kurosawa, maybe like 5 or 6 Kurosawa films.
So I have watched. Actually, I probably watched more random, more random modern Japanese cinema than I have like some of the classics, actually. So I've probably seen maybe 6 to 10 Japanese films, but like maybe 6 of those are modern films, or maybe even up to 8. So I've seen I've talked about this on the show briefly, I think, but I saw The Last Samurai, I believe. Is that the right film? It was a great film, so I'm embarrassed to forget the title entirely, but it was so freaking good. It was quite the experience, a very unique experience. But yeah. But in those films, it's not as I think the overstated exaggeration does happen more probably in anime than it does just from hearing the intonations. In in those other Japanese films, it's not really like that. So I assume it's an anime thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say my limited experience though, just from watching Kurosawa, it's very different than although there's certainly like in a lot of the Kurosawa films, there's a lot of character acting where that they do kind of have some exaggerated things.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite just in the same way as anime, but yeah.
Yes. Okay, so to Howl's Moving Castle specifically. So unfortunately, I hear it dubbed only. So sorry for that. But after about the first 10 minutes, I was able to, I guess, just what's the word for it? Man, it's a term. It's storytelling. Suspension of disbelief. I was able to engage suspension of disbelief enough with the voice acting and the lines that it stopped bothering me, because at least it was consistent. It wasn't like random lines here and there just dropping these horrible lines in there here and there that just kind of eject you out of it. It was consistently styled the way it was translated into English, and the voice acting was consistently styled, and it kind of creates its own sort of charming childlike universe in that way on its own. So that's to say I was able to still enjoy it. A few things about this film. Compared to other stuff I've seen from Studio Ghibli, so including Spirited Away, but also screenshots I've seen from other films, this film is has a very interesting animation style, very different art direction. It is a crossover, basically, between the Japanese anime sort of style and Western cartoon style. I don't know if you can kind of see it in the episode artwork, but it's kind of an interesting blend. And I'm not an expert in animation at all. It's not something I do. I'm not an animator. I've never made an animated film or worked on an animated film or anything like that, although I'm not opposed. So I don't know that much about the terms in the art form, about the thickness of lines and where lines meet and stuff like that. I know that's huge in the animation world, stuff like that. So I can't really comment to that, unfortunately. But I do know, just from my untrained eye, animation eye, that this is sort of a blending between sort of Western cartoon style and anime. You can see in the eyes that they're not quite as bulbous, but they've got sort of that same iris styling and stuff like that is in anime. Why is it like that? It's like that because it takes place in some fantasy world in Europe. And I think that's kind of a way that they want to have fun with sort of bringing you into a European world, but through the eyes of anime. And it works phenomenally well. Some of the shots in the first scenes of this film are so breathtaking. The color. And I think this is a common thing I see with Studio Ghibli, is that their color is just so gorgeous. They use such rich palettes without it being over vibrant, over saturated. They've got complex color patterns going on, so we don't just see simple tritones or something like that, like you see in film a lot in in sort of typical Hollywood films. You either see like tritone stuff, or you see contrasting colors, like the classic teal orange that you see in blockbuster movies. The palette of this anime is that of a lot of delicate colors. So there's like creams, and there's roses, and there's these very rich greens that aren't oversaturated, right? Like they feel very almost filmic. And that's probably to do with the process that I have no idea about, right? Like there's probably some color process, some transfer process that I don't understand that lends to this very film, almost technicolor looking end result in terms of its color palette. And I really, really enjoyed that. That being said, if this film existed in the sort of I guess the Hollywood sphere of construction, this would be looked at a lot for just the set design. It's just so imaginative. And Studio Ghibli, I guess, is just good at this, right? They're just good at constructing new worlds out of ideas that just seem to come out of nowhere. But when you see them, you're like, that's so creative. Like, I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way. You know, the way that they do character design, the way they do set design, one of the first things you see is Howl's moving castle. So Howl, which is Lord Howl, I think, is the guy in the artwork there. And he has a literal moving castle. Like, it literally walks. And, you know, the design to a moving castle, you would think would be something like, you know, a castle with legs or some. It is so complex what they come up with, but so full of life and character. You have this sort of pieced together thing that becomes a good representation of a lot of underlying themes, which is a consistent thing I've noticed also with Studio Ghibli films that I've watched, is that they are very well integrated in their thematic understanding from top to bottom. They think about theme when they think of color, they think about theme when they think of character, they think about theme when they think of writing, they think about theme when they think about set design, universe building, you name it. They're really, really good at that. So the castle becomes figurative in a lot of different ways. And I won't spoil this one too much because I think I can avoid talking about the specifics of this film. So that's to say is that this thing is an aesthetic feast, and I highly recommend it just on that point alone, just because I can just remember so much of the visual aspects of this film because it's just so freaking beautiful, and I applaud them for that. But next, let's go over to the writing, which is typically what I do start with. And as you know, I've talked about writing many times on the show. It's one of the things I love talking about the most. Check out our podcasts on Writing 101 if you want to really understand where I come from. If you just search Writing 101 on our YouTube or on our podcast, wherever, you'll find it. But I tend to look at writing very different from the typical Hollywood sort of 3-act structure, or 3.5, 2A, 2B, ridiculous nonsense structure, right? I tend to look at things more in a Shakespearean tradition. Not that I've studied Shakespeare in any depth at all, but I understand acts the same way that Shakespeare understands acts. I find that some of the best films have no regard for any 3-act structure. They just don't care, right? And some of those films are some of the best to me because they tell the story as it needs to be told. They don't add or subtract just so they can fit some sort of mold. And this film is one of them. This film is written in such a way that we are going to tell the story that needs to be told, no matter how many acts it takes. This film probably is... I didn't actually sit down and count the acts in this film, but this film probably has like 6 acts in it. Maybe 7. I'm not sure. It has a lot of acts, maybe 8 even. I wouldn't be surprised if someone goes, actually, there's 8 acts in this film. There might be. I have no idea. But there's a lot of progression in this film that have all of these little climaxes. One thing that really helps with is with children. Because if you have more climaxes in a shorter period of time, you kind of keep them on the hook for longer. There's a lot more, rewarding, constant rewarding, right, for getting over the hump of these climaxes, these little lessons that you learn along the way on your journey, right? And I really enjoy that, not just for kids, but it also makes it really engaging for anyone who's watching. Post says, sounds like how Tarantino does it. Yeah, Tarantino just writes what he wants. And I don't even think he thinks of acts. I think he just, from what I understand from his interviews and stuff like that, he just writes the story as he wants it to be, takes some editing notes, and then he's done. And I find that people who are people tell more naturally better stories without any regard for any writing structure than when they just wholesale blindly accept the sort of 3-act blockbuster structure that everyone tells you is the right way to write. It's not the right way to write. Even those 3-act structure movies that you like and that most people like, even that, those films tend to actually be able to be broken down in proper act structure, even though they're supposedly fit in the 3-act structure, traditional 3-act structure. Anyway, that's diatribe. But this film has a lot of acts. And so it's very odd in a lot of different ways, as you would expect creating this universe, where you have a clash of time periods in terms of inspiration. So we've got a lot of Victorian era inspiration, for sure, in terms of attire, in terms of the accoutrement of the scene and stuff like that. But in terms of, like, technology, there's some, like, futuristic stuff going on. It's kind of weird. These, like, interesting vehicles that fly around and stuff like that. Kind of steampunky, but not quite steampunky in a weird way. There's, like 1700s type, like, more like Renaissance type tones to it here and there. But basically, there's, like, let's look at the art tradition of Europe and just kind of smush it all together and create this fantasy universe, which is really fun. Okay, so let's go back to story. So basically, what we have is a story that doesn't really fit in any of the traditional. So I talk a lot about hero's journey, revenge stories, Bildungsroman. There's many different, like, traditional sort of story structures that a lot of movies fit into that are sort of archetypal, right? And I talk about how people, don't like to use those structures because, they've been used so many times, but they're archetypal and they always speak to people and blah, blah, blah. I've talked about that before. This film does not fit in any of those. It's just kind of its own thing. It's in its own structure. It's telling its own story, and that's totally fine. I'm trying not to, like, I don't want to beat by beat this film, so I'm trying to avoid getting into the specific details. But the overarching story, basically, is a story of one person with self-esteem issues, who is our main character, and one person who failed to grow up, which is Christian Bale's character, right? And these themes are very beautiful to play around with in this universe, especially when you consider that this film is mostly made for children, right? It's very mature in how it handles those themes. Post says, how does the castle move? Steam, coal? Technically firewood. So, I guess that could be charcoal? I don't really know. So... yeah, I don't think it's a name for wood-fired universes. I'm not sure. But those themes are played with very maturely. So if you're a child, it's done in such a way that it forces you to be deeper about your own thoughts, but it's still understandable as a child, right? Like, maybe you won't be able to vocalize those understandings, right, as a child, but you will almost certainly, if I remember what being a child is like at all, the impact, the force of the lessons that they're teaching you about life, about growing up, about self-esteem, right? They're going to hit somewhere and probably remain with you. It's one of the biggest problems I have with a lot of American children's movies is they infantilize children so much. And I don't think that's good. Obviously, if you can barely speak, that's a different thing than if you are, 8 years old and, 9 years old. So it depends on the age. But this film actually, I think, is the right level of emotional depth and complexity for the age that it's trying to speak to, which is a wide age. And I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. And so it starts off with something really relatable, which is the dude doesn't clean his room, right? Like, it's genius little things like that that I really love. Like, it connects this idea of not cleaning your room with a lack like this that there's something wrong with you. Like, no, that sounds really bad, but that you lack some sort of. Oh, you're muted, Ben. I don't know if you said something.
I'm gonna say I'm someone who takes my time cleaning my room, so now I feel kind of called out by this film already.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that blanket. It's more like the idea that he doesn't have responsibility for anything, right? Or he's so self-concerned, so selfish that the exterior world just kind of falls apart around him, and he has no regard for it, right? That's really what I mean. And so that's already relatable to a child. Like, just the setting, right, is just already relatable to a child. And I really like how it just takes those ideas, puts them together, and says, I'm going to teach you something that is so transcendent about growing up and about human nature, about selfishness, and how you could be so sad for yourself, but that sadness could be ultimately selfishness, right? Our main character, or our Christian Bale character, rather, is kind of emo. In a funny way. It's played for humor multiple times. But he's like very pretentious, takes himself too seriously, kind of thing going on there. And so there's a lot of sad boy moments where he's just like, woe is me, XYZ. And the movie does the thing which requires emotional maturity, right? Which is to say, okay, sometimes it's okay to be sad, but like, not like this though. This is just selfish, right? And that's a complex message. That's a really complex message. It's emotionally complex. But it's a good one. It's an important one to say, look, you could become a black hole and just suck everyone around you into your own misery, right? Anyway, so that's one of the major themes, and the main character, she's got this complexity about her where she's never thought of herself as beautiful. Although we get hints that other people think she's beautiful, but I think that's actually very emotionally complex itself too, right? Like, it's not the case that just because someone tells you something, right, that you take it to heart or believe it. And it's not even enough, and that's not even the point, right? There's this emotional complexity that she feels this way about herself, and so feels less than, and so feels unworthy to talk to someone like Howl, right, who finds her at the beginning of the movie. There's this funny moment that's very cheesy and kind of romantic of him swooping down and saving her from, like, shady soldiers. And there's this, like, moment where they're flying in the sky and they're talking, whatever. And the interesting thing about the dynamic between the two is that she learns that she has something to bring to the table to make his life better, right? It's not the beauty, right? That's the linchpin of it all, right? That was in her own mind, like, wow, I'm really not beautiful, so I'm never going to go anywhere with life and never going to find a husband or whatever it is, right? That wasn't the linchpin of it all for her. The linchpin was more like, oh, I actually have value, right? I have value because because I'm human, right? I have value because I'm human, and I have things to bring to this broken person who I thought was kind of otherworldly before, that I put on a higher pedestal than he belonged on, right? And so she takes care of him in that way. And so, that's to say, story, very beautiful, very classic feeling. And at this point, I want to watch many more Studio Ghibli films. Last few things. I really like the music in it. I can't comment on it in the depth that Ben would, so I'm not going to try. But it was memorable and reminded me of. I actually don't know when this film was made. Now that I think about it, but whenever it was made, I don't know. But it reminds me.
I think.
What is it?
I think 2004. I was just trying to find the score. There's like part of a score, but not the full score that you can buy for this one.
Okay. Yeah, but the score is fantastic. It's very charming, very memorable, but also not imposing, even though it's in a lot of it. There's a lot of music in this film, and that's all I'll say about it. And there's one last thing I was going to talk about. What was it? Oh, yeah. My only critique at all, and this is kind of a thing that happens in animes in general, and maybe it's just like, maybe it's just a me thing, and I'm willing to accept that, and maybe I should just sort of see the space for what it is. But there's a lot of space in the audio engineering, right? So there's like, what'll often happen in anime, right, is they'll take a sound, they'll distill it to like a core like idea, and it won't be like terribly layered on top of that. So like, for example, for Howl's Moving Castle, I was thinking about this while I was watching it, because unfortunately there's this curse of having to analyze everything you watch, which is very annoying when you're really into this stuff, but you know, it gets a little distracting sometimes. So I was listening, I was like, the castle sound is so interesting. I wondered what they used to make it. But like, the interesting thing about the way it's constructed is actually just two sounds. There's this one like weird like bending metal sound, almost like something big and massive is bending, which is good, right? Because it's a moving metal thing, you know, that's contraption that's moving along. But there's also this like other sound that happens in the transition of the walk, right? Just to emphasize the fact that every time this thing has to take a step, it has to like switch gears, right? It has to kerplunk a little bit, right? And that's very simple. I actually really like that. That's cool and all, but like there's some space in the audio engineering that just kind of feels empty sometimes. And there's sometimes not even music in those areas either. So it's just kind of the dialogue is going back and forth, and there's just nothing there. And I don't know if that's just a me thing, but sometimes it gets to me a little bit where I'm kind of like, shouldn't there be like birds or something, or like you know, or like the grass should be wafting, that like just some like background sound, but there's just kind of nothing there. But that's something I've noticed in anime as a whole. So maybe it's something I should just continue to look at and try to interpret from the anime sort of palette. So yeah, that's all I've got on this film. Highly recommend. I think I gave it a 4 or 4.5 on Letterboxd. I'm not sure. I'd have to go check. But if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, there's actually it's not easy to find, but IGAROX, or search my name on Letterboxd, Irving Nestor, and you'll find me. And you can follow my ratings on there. So, recommend.
Irving, do you have any thoughts? You're talking about, kids shows in America and infantilizing children or something along those lines, right? Not treating children like they, are capable of some, complexity, whatever, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on the Australian show Bluey?
I have never seen it, but I've heard of it briefly. I don't know what it is though.
It is. It's for like little children, and the messages are not very complex. But it is. I see. When I first heard of it because I saw something from the composer about it being like first season being released and winning some award in Australia. I'm like, oh, and I saw that happened to be on Disney Plus, so I started watching it. And everyone in my family thought this is ridiculous. Why are you watching this like show for 5-year-olds? But I've come to realize that it has a really devoted following from like people, young, people like our age, and amongst a lot of adults too, because it's like equally as much a show for like the 4 or 5-year-olds as it is for their parents. It's really, really quite wonderful and entertaining.
So is it? Wait, so you're saying it's good or it's okay, or like what's your
fantastic.
overall? Oh, it's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
I'm
just looking at pictures of it, and I feel like I've never seen this before in my life.
I mean, if you were to watch like an entire season, like 50 episodes, in a row, yes, not all of them are quite as high quality,
Mhm.
but overall the effect is really wonderful, and there are some really amazing episodes in there. Like I said, it is equally as much for the parents. Not that I'm a parent, but I can understand. I were a parent. It is equally as much for the parents as it is for the children.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's a very cute show.
Maybe I will look up some stuff. Post says, is it as good as SpongeBob seasons 1 through 4? Well, is it better?
Well, you know what? I've never seen that much SpongeBob. I have seen a lot, probably most of the original episodes since some point. It's not comparable at all. It's like comparing apples to steaks. It's just not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I'll have some thoughts on it at some future point. Maybe I'll post those thoughts on the Discord, which is the link to is in the description.
Oh, well, I can certainly contribute some thoughts about it. The music is fantastic too. I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
people actually invested in music in a children's show? That's crazy.
Like I said, that's how I heard about it first. I heard like from the composer himself, like posted something on Facebook, like, but and like it's won a whole bunch of the show has won lots of awards, but I think the music itself has also won a bunch of awards.
Wow. I'm surprised. There's even custom music that's not like MIDI music or something like that in it. Because I feel
No.
if I were to turn on Disney Channel right now, it'd be like MIDI music or something.
The music is always very appropriate for the episode. And it is a lot of times, sometimes it's like parodies of classical music, like with, in a very MIDI kind of like very quantized MIDI sort of, style, but only intentionally so. A lot of times it's really, really beautiful.
Wow. Dang. That's a glowing endorsement from Ben. So I got to check this one out. Bluey. Cool. Well, I will leave you all, the audience, to tell me what you thought of Howl's Moving Castle if you have seen it, or Bluey for that matter, in the comments below or on our Discord. Let me know if you disagree, agree. Is Bluey or Howl's Moving Castle better than Spirited Away? Let's just make those comparisons. But if you agree or disagree with my thoughts on those things, let me know. I would love to see it, and we'll probably bring those up on the next show. As we go along. So that's my movie segment. So yeah, I mean that's our whole segment for today because Nathan's not here. So, time to sign off. It was a good night. Sorry, 1 second. My mouse got stuck, of course. Okay, there we go. All right, so thank you for watching Mixed Media. I really appreciate it. Definitely check out our Discord for sure if you want to continue the conversation on there. We're always talking throughout the week about the stuff that we talked about on the show. So definitely go check that out if you want to contribute. But also check it out because we might be putting Ben in Minecraft at some point. Maybe if we can convince him. So if you want to see Ben play Minecraft, please, it'll be streamed, I promise. If you want to see that happen, please go to our Discord and let him know that you want to see that happen. And if you also want to be on the Minecraft server and see the shenanigans firsthand, it'll be open to everyone who's on our Discord. So definitely go check it out on there. With that, also a shout out to 99 Crime, who wasn't here with us today, but I know he was here with us in spirit because he's an awesome dude. And Rob Sharma for supporting us for $5 a month at mixedmedia.locals.com. And you can support us too at that site, mixedmedia.locals.com, if you want to help us out. It also helps us to pay potentially for a Minecraft license for Ben. So, if you want to help us with our silly little projects, you can go check it out on Locals. Anything link to anything else, our YouTube, our Rumble, our Twitch, our Locals, or pretty much anything, our podcasts, you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com. All those links are probably in the description somewhere if you look hard enough. With that, I'll see you next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, thank you for watching and listening.
Bye.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers. No need for the telephone